Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with an old standby of mine that is going to be Mathmech. So, we are on our build for Season 39 here, which honestly is not too different from previous builds. However, there is one important piece of tech well, not really tech, but it's the third Synapse mining. This card has been released from semi-limited back up to 3, and while it doesn't make a ton of difference for Mathmech and Cybersticks, the additional opener is definitely more than welcome. So for this build here, I'm continuing the trend from what we saw, I think, during the last Duelist Cup. One of the Mathmech lists that got in the top 100 was neither playing Multiplication in the main deck, nor Update Jammer in the extra deck. And honestly, I really like this. Now, if you haven't seen any of my previous updates for Mathmech, you might be wondering, well then Lex, how do we OTK if we're not on either of those cards? And the answer is simply that we're using the second effect of G Golem Crystal Heart, which says that Earth monsters co-linked to this card gain 600 attack for each GG counter on this card, can make a second attack during each battle phase. Also, if they attack a defensive position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. We can simply make the Dark Fluid Earth by sending the Dotscaper, and from there we are good to go. Actually, you know, I will say you might want Leak Spider in the extra deck as well in case you draw a Dotscaper. Because as the build currently is, there are some situations where you wouldn't be able to OTK as easily. But I think that playing Leak Spider in the extra, something you would already consider anyway, is probably preferable to something like Multiplication, Update Jammer, which really don't do anything unless you're like actively OTKing, which you don't really need to use them a lot in order to win, honestly, with this deck. And Multiplication, I can tell you, is just always glued to the opening hand. It's so annoying. You could definitely take out the second Splash Mage or even the Firewall Dragon Singularity if you wanted for that Link Spider. And as weird as it might sound, I'm actually kind of leaning towards taking out the Singularity because the second Splash Mage I find is very, very helpful in this meta where Kashtira Unicorn as a tech and as an engine is very, very popular in a number of decks. You might think like, oh, wouldn't you want to eat something like Terahertz or Access Code Talker? And like, yeah, those are definitely like not bad picks. Well, I think in an extra deck without Update Jammer, I would never take Access Code Talker. But like, yeah, Terahertz is still a pretty good pick. But honestly, if a Mathmech list is only playing one Splash Mage and you can Unicorn extra deck rip them before they really do any plays, that is the best thing to take. Because without Splash Mage, you have to use 3 monsters to make transcode in order to go into any amount of plays. And even then, you don't really get to bring anything back with the transcode. I can just tell you from experience, when you're out of Splash Mages, it's really, really hard to make combos in this deck. That's why I've played a second one even before this meta. But again, with Kashtira Unicorn running around everywhere, I really like the second Splash Mage. Again, I think Leak Spider does probably end up being important enough to play now that I think about it. And I would probably drop Singularity for it. Because even if you have extra bodies, you can just end on Terahertz plus Heat Soul, which is actually even debatably better than Terahertz plus Singularity, because these two, both being Dark and Cybers, can be super polyed away, whereas Heat Soul and Terahertz being different attributes cannot, among a few other minor weaknesses like that. Also, the bounce effect of Singularity just really does not come up that often at all. It's not difficult for your opponent to play around, either by not playing into Singularity zones that it's pointing to, or to simply remove the Singularity before it really has an opportunity to bounce anything, right? So, the card is good, but I don't think it's, like, necessary by any means. Yeah, I think for the main deck, we're on something pretty similar to what we've been doing. We're on Triple Draw and Lockbird now. Of course, not only is it great in this meta, but it's also a great Small World Bridge for this deck. Do story like playing Nib for the Small World Bridge, especially with Fuelos, is quite good. Fuelos and Droll also work as excellent Small World Bridges together. If you open one, you can go into the other. Well, mainly if you open Droll, you could reveal the Fuelos, and that gives you access to all your level 4s, right? So, it ends up being pretty good. Still like having the one of Valor as a Small World Bridge as well. And just as a good hand trap. Yeah, I think the build is pretty self-explanatory here, so why don't we just go ahead and break it down card by card, and then we'll look at some of our games. We're on 1 Effect Veiler, 3 Drone Lockbird, 1 Dotscaper, 2 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 1 Firewall Guardian, 1 Mathmech Sigma, 1 Mathmech Addition, 1 Mathmech Subtraction, 1 Mathmech Diameter, 3 Mathmech Circular, 3 Firewall Defensor, 3 Molcharmi Fuelos, 2 Parallel Exceed, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 3 Cynet Lighting, 1 Mathmech Equation, 3 Small World, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Cross-Out Designator, 2 Infinite Impermanence, and finally 1 Mathmech Superfactorial. This could be our main deck for the extra. We're on 1 Cyber Save Warren, 1 Prime Mathmech Laplation, 1 Prime Mathmech Almersion, 1 Mirrologic Aggregator, 1 Salamangreat Almirage, 1 Lingaribo, 1 Leak Decoder, 2 Splash Mage, 1 G-Golem Crystal Heart, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Decode Talker Heat Soul, 1 Axis Code Talker, 1 Firewall Dragon, Neo Tempest Terahertz, and finally 1 Firewall Dragon Singularity. There's our list. Let's check out these games. Alright, so our first opponent is going to be on 8 Axis, a deck I haven't seen in quite some time, but with the Horse and Millennium archetypes, has a lot of legs. 8 Axis being, for those who don't know, a deck focused on getting out rank 8 monsters, and has a pretty solid OTK line with Druglagon. One thing I'll say about my opponent's deck is I'm really surprised they're not on 7th Tachyon. They have a lot of light level 8 monsters, and could be making use of it in that regard, I think, but we're going to be taking the first turn here. This game, as I usually like to do, the first duel is going to show off not just us playing out a turn 1 combo line, because it's Mathmech. You've seen this combo line a lot, right? But also us playing through our disruptions, because that's something that I don't think gets talked about nearly enough in Yu-Gi-Oh! People will talk about, you know, oh, you just make a board with like 5 negates, but when you're playing against other meta decks, it's not just enough to make a board of that many negates. You have to know how to use them against your opponent too. If your opponent knows what they're doing as well, it's especially important to do so. Now, you'll notice that for this combo line, I have placed Prime Mathmech Almersion directly under this EMZ, and I'm not using it as a material. That's because I want to go for Singularity. If you're summoning Singularity on turn 1, then we want to trigger its let's see, that would be the here we go, the second effect here. If a monster this card points to destroy a battle or sent to the graveyard, target a Cyber monster in the graveyard and special summon it. We're going to need to activate this to bring out Terahertz, so I want the Almersion to be directly under the EMZ, so Singularity will end up pointing to it. However, Transcode we need to put in the other EMZ, because it can only summon Splash Mage to the zone that it's pointing to. Throwing out our extra body here. If I had one more extra body, I could have actually ended on Singularity, Terahertz, and Heat Soul, but okay, so here's our Singularity. Now we're going to activate Almersion's first effect to tribute and bring back one of our Mathmech monsters. This procs Singularity in order to bring back our Transcode, and then now we can do these 3 into Terahertz. That's how you go turn 1 Singularity plus Terahertz. And yeah, we'll dump D-Save Worm with Terahertz, although again, if I had one more extra body, one more extra extender, I could have dumped Dotscaper instead, then activated Equation to bring back a Mathmech monster, and then with my 1 additional extender, again, could have made the Heat Soul. But that would have been super win more. Setting the Singularity alongside 2 Imperms before passing over to our opponent, who's going to immediately tribute off the Singularity for the Kaiju. Now they're going to special summon Alpha, the Master of Beasts, and you'll notice I'm using my Singularity, or not Singularity, sorry, the Superfactorial right off the bat. That's because the Alpha has the ability to bounce both itself and monsters on the opponent's field. So, one, I don't want them to get, you know, by Dark Fluid anyway, but also they could simply bounce the Kaiju and then just resummon it to my field as well. Either way, that's not something I want to happen, so I'm going to use Superfactorial here to remove the Alpha before it has a chance to use its effect, and then also snipe a card from hand. Yeah, deck knowledge is very important to knowing when and how to use your negates, and it ends up being crucial in that regard to competitive play, for sure. Like rating duels, high-level tournaments, having participated in both of those things, I can tell you that this is absolutely a skill worth utilizing. So now that my opponent no longer can threaten my Super Factorial with Call By, I'm much more loose about using my D-Save Worm, so I'll use it against Small World here. Plus, we still have an Omni Negate, so I'm feeling pretty good about that Spell Trap Negate. Now here they're going to go ahead and activate King Sark. Before it has a chance to actually activate the effect, I want to use Terahertz's effect to dump Mirrologic Aggregator. You're probably wondering by this point, Hex, you have an Omni and 2 Imperms. Why aren't you using those? Well, I think this is all a part of using your negates well, right? You want to use your negates that are more situational first, right? So, in the case of Aggregator, like, yeah, when they go to activate King Sark effect, I could use Loplation on it. And in this situation, it wouldn't really matter because they'd be out of cards in hand anyway. But just playing optimally means making use of the Aggregator when you can, because the timing of this card can be a little tricky sometimes, and it's not always optimal when you get to have a good timing for this card. Loplation is much easier to time, so I figure use the more difficult to time stuff first, and then save your better disruption for later. Now here they're going to just battle over the Loplation, although again it doesn't super matter because they're down to their last card. The last card does let them go into Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis, of which I can simply use an Imperm here. Now, we do have another hurdle to overcome with this Sky Crisis in play, namely that I can't really OTK while it's out in defense mode. So, we're going to do something about that. I'm going to start by activating the Sigma effect, and then activating the Equation. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, oh, G-Golem, right? You could just put that in the zone above Terahertz, and then now it can inflict piercing. Well, no, I'm going to put it in the other zone, because here's the thing. Yes, it would inflict piercing, however, the Terahertz would not be able to activate its effect due to the effect of the Typhon, right? It would only be able to do 8,000 minus 2,900 would be... well, it'd leave them at 2,900, right? And then the Kaiju only has 2,200 attacks, so my opponent would be left at 700. What I need to do here is use G-Golem to bring back Transcode and use that to make Access Code. Now, very important that here we do not activate Access Code's effect to actually gain attack points. Because again, Typhon says that neither player can activate the effects of monsters with 3,000 or more attack. So, by leaving it at 2,300, I can simply use Access Code to pop the Typhon, and then we'll swing in for lethal with the Terahertz. So there you go. That was one of those situations where we put up a very solid end board. We even had 2 Imperms on top of it, and it looked like, you know, it didn't really matter how things shook out. We were always going to win that game. But if you actually look at what it all came down to, we only had 1 Imperm left at the end of our opponent's turn, and we still had to overcome the Typhon on their field. So again, even situations that look very one-sided are often closer than they seem, and that's why knowing when and how to use your negates is absolutely a skill worth learning. And if you're denying that that is a skill at all in this game, then you are denying yourself the ability to improve at the game. I implore you to explore this for sure. All right, that's it for our first duel. Let's take a look at this next one. Our next opponent is on Fiendsmith Tearlament with Orchest. Very cool list. The kind of thing I would be totally down to try. I haven't played Fiendsmith Orchest yet. That just occurred to me. Or wait, did I? I actually don't remember. Either way, I want to get on it some more. I really love Orchest. We're going second this time. Got the Maxi as well as an Imperm here. I'm going to use the Imperm on my opponent's Cashier Unicorn. Now, the reason I'm doing it on Unicorn now is because, well, 1... I don't want them to search, but 2, I really don't want them to get the extra deck rip when I use the Maxi or another hand trap this turn. If they eat Terahertz, I mean, I could still find a way to win, but it would be really, really annoying. The thing is, they're probably going to get the extra deck rip off on my turn anyway, so that is something I'm a little bit concerned about going into this game here. Opponent's going to Foolish a Shiren. I'm going to simply use my Maxi in response. Looks like they're going to use Shiren to fuse with another Shiren in hand. And this will, of course, allow them to summon out the Kitkalos. Now, here I thought my opponent was going to go Kitkalos to add Soliac or Crime, but they actually end up going for another fusion here. I was a little surprised. They're going to go Havness, Mill with the Kitkalos, and then fuse with Kitkalos for Rolkalos. giving me an extra draw. Now here, this is really funny. They triple attack and hand rip, and like, how upset would you be if you were like, all right, I'm gonna get the triple attack hand rip. I got Unicorn Volcalos, I should be good, and their hand is stacked. Like, yeah, they put back Circular here, but there's literally no good thing to put back here that's gonna stop me from making plays. It's all good. It's literally all good. They have a Thrust as well. Thrust is going to set D barrier. I was really surprised when I saw this in my opponent's deck list, especially now knowing that they're also playing Orcus stuff too. I don't know how they have room for all this. Well, they had to cut a lot of hand traps, and I really think that at the end of the day, hand traps are better than something like Thrust for D barrier. IMO, personally, but yeah, D barrier doing absolutely nothing to us here, as it cannot call Link monsters, and that is all I need to do in order to win is Link Summon. Gonna go one of my 2 Signet Minings, pitching the Sigma for Circular. I kind of wish I would have used Small World a little bit. A little bit. Yeah, I actually kind of do, because now I don't have a monster in hand to really use with the Small World, so it's kind of dead now. Well, my opponent used Real Close very, very soon when I hoped they would. And that's going to allow me to equation back to Circular and then go for Sigma. Now here's the Unicorn Extra Deck rip, and this is what I was anxious about. But they ended up taking Access Code Talker, and I'm like, huh? What? That is completely fine. They definitely should have taken Terahertz here. Although I will take this opportunity to say that if they had taken Terahertz, then I think my plan would have been to go G-Golem plus Transcode to battle over their board. Because again, I know this face down is D barrier and can't stop me. And then from there, maybe end on Singularity, maybe Heat Soul, maybe just Transcode Heat Soul, some amount of that. If you're wondering what you would do without Terahertz here. Now, I actually don't have enough bodies to do the G-Golem Crystal Heart plus Terahertz OTK. I think if I had one more, I'd be able to do it, which is, again, I wish I would have used Small World instead of Signet Mining. Like, Signet Mining pitch Sigma looks obvious, but I think if I had Small Worlded for a Diameter, and then Signet pitch Signet for another random Mathmech monster, then I would have been able to OTK here. So I think that's really what I should have done. I was very short-sighted in wanting to get Sigma into the graveyard with Signet Mining, for sure. But at the same time, I mean, even if we can't OTK, like, on this turn, we're still going to set ourselves up in a situation where we can clear off our opponent's board. Because we sent Diameter off of Terahertz, that does 2 things. One, it gives Terahertz a second attribute, which means it can make a second attack against monsters. And 2, now I have my Super Factorial completely set up for the next turn as well. So I'll set everything here just to bluff and make it seem like I have more than I do. Although they should know that Signet Mining is Small World. I didn't even think about that till just now, that because they had triple attacked me, they knew what was in my hand. Although they could have also assumed that one of the face down cards was still live, because I top deck Signet Mining. Well, no, but if they were paying attention, they would have realized I still had the other... Wait, no, they wouldn't have known that, because they would have thought that was a Signet Mining they would seen, and they would have known what the card I drew for turn the second Signet Mining was. So they could assume that one of the face downs was a bluff Small World, but the other one might be real, in addition to the Super Factorial. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, we have one more game. Let's finish off with that one. And our final opponent is going to be on Fiendsmith, Azamina, Snake Eye. The big bad of the format. Battle Snake Eye. Alright, anyway. Let's go first here. And hand's looking pretty good. Got Signet Mining Pitch Dotscaper to lead off with. Can't complain about that. Cross out if they do have the Ash Blossom here, which it doesn't look like they do. Gonna summon out the Dotscaper, of course. Circular F, sending Sigma in order to special. Go to activate Sigma, and there is the Magnum Hut. Brutal. I will say that the prominence of Bestials in this meta makes it a lot more difficult for Mathmech to get going. Not the best meta to be playing Mathmech in. You know, it baffles me, because I'll see, like... I'll see people, whether it's like individuals or even like other YouTubers, make custom Master Duel ban lists, and everyone still tacks on Mathmech Circular to get limited or banned, and it's like, why? What is Mathmech doing right now? Like, yeah, God forbid, we need to hit the 12th best deck in the format right now. That's not even an exaggeration either. I do think there's probably a dozen decks out there that are better than Mathmech right now. As far as, like, taking them to Duelist Cup or a tournament or something and experiencing success. It's just wild to me. I am starting to see more people kind of push back against that. For a long while, it'd just be people like, yeah, fuck Mathmech. But now I am actually starting to see more people in the replies be like, oh, what is Mathmech doing out here? Now, as you can see, even though we did get hit with the Bestial, we were still able to search up Superfactorial, and we can actually still set it up. The problem is that the Bestial was Magnabot and it searched Juraswarm, which now represents another banished from our graveyard, which means that on the follow-up turn, on my opponent's turn here, I need them to activate Juraswarm and for me to chain Superfactorial. That basically means that my Superfactorial is going to be probably the last thing I get to use, if I even get to use it, which is not going to be ideal here. I'm going to have to use my other Terahertz activation to set that up as well. Like, yeah, I could send the Save Worm, but then they just banish that with Juraswarm, and then I only have 2 Mathmech monsters in my graveyard, and now I can't make plays anymore. Alright, so we're going to go Tract for Lurie, Lurie F to Special, Link off for Requiem. Of course, we all know Requiem for Engraver at this point. I do have this Nibiru in my hand. I'm going to be kind of banking on this quite a bit here. Yeah, Engraver F on Terahertz. That's unfortunately going to have to be fine. There's really not much I can do about it here. As they go into Sequence. And then they're going to go Sequence for Lacrima. And then Lacrima, of course, for Engraver. Now, I did consider using my Nib at this point. Because there was part of me that was like, oh, what if they go into 3-mat Appaloosa and then try to combo here in an attempt to play around exactly Nib? But I was also like, you know, even if that's the case and I Nib here, they can still summon whatever they were gonna summon with the Appaloosa anyway and then just win. I need this Nib to be enough to get my opponent to summon Juraswarm so that I can chain Superfactorial. That's the only way I'm going to win this game. So I'm not going to Nib here. I'm going to wait. Now here they're going to use the graveyard effect of Fiendsmith's Tract in order to fusion summon the Desiree. I'm actually fine with this because Desiree can only negate cards that are on the field. Nib activates in hand, and they can already stop my Superfactorial with Juraswarm anyway. So yeah, I'm really not that concerned about the Desiree here. Alright, so Ash for Poplar. Poplar F. I could Nib here, but I want to wait just another moment. I want to see if they use Poplar's effect, 1. And if I can get Oak, then I would definitely like to do that as well. And leave them with fewer options for follow-up. I figured they would go Ash F for Oak before going for Flamberge here, and sure enough they do. So when Oak brings back Ash, this is when I'm going to Nib. Like, they were probably going to activate Temple first, but really, I don't want them to go Oak F and then be able to get the Flamberge before I Nib, right? Thankfully, Desiree ended up hitting the Crossout Designator. I'm going to target Callby with it in case they have that plus Juraswarm. But unfortunately, this is so frustrating. They actually also just had Wanted in their hand. Think about how stacked my opponent's hand here was, especially against Mathmech. They had a Bestial, they had Wanted, they had Fiendsmith stuff, they had OSS as well, because they just straight up activated that from hand. Actually just had everything. And unfortunately for me, this means they can go Temple, place Flamberge, send Flamberge with Diabellstar, and then that's enough to get me to concede here. Because that's enough for them to have lethal on board and still have the Juraswarm in hand. I guess I could have used Superfactorial to get a couple of extra bodies like in defense mode, but at the same time, the Diabellstar means they can go into the Azamina engine, which means they can summon Ilia Sylvia, which means I'm just kind of screwed no matter what. So yeah, I'm like, I'll just concede here, that's fine. But, still a pretty good duel, still a pretty close one, I think. It did require my opponent having a very stacked hand to play through all that, so... Alright, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you for watching, but that is going to be all for now. Let us move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free. And if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's, again, free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.